In my preparation for a small group, right, I started observing some of the words in the text, and then I went and studied a little bit of the historical background, right? And I learned about the context of what was happening. So what did you guys just read about? Okay, more. Paul's missionary journey. Okay, why is that significant? So if you're going to look up this time frame, why is it significant to know about Paul's missionary journeys in relation to this book?
I don't know if I'm gonna.
That's okay.
But this was towards the end of his life because he was old, right?
He was aged.
Maybe by this time he was in prison in Rome. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so he is sending this letter from Rome to Philemon by Onesimus.
Yep.
So from Rome to Philemon is a long way.
Yeah.
And so Philemon or Onesimus must have traveled a long way to get to Philemon.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's helpful, right? Because it tells us, if we look at some historical background of Paul, maybe we can place where Paul is based on our understanding. If he's writing it, right, and he says, in my imprisonment, or I'm a prisoner, right? There's some important information. When was he a prisoner? Well, he was a prisoner at the end of his technically his third missionary journey, and then he went into prison, right? So knowing about Paul's life would be significant in understanding the book. So these are all things that we would want to know for ourselves. Now I'm using Philemon, which if you've ever done this before, or any sort of inductive study, Philemon is like, the quintessential book. But you have to think about this as if it's a book that you've never done before. What would you do to prepare yourself for leading a small group? Right? I would sit down, I would go through observation, I would look at words, I would then try to figure out some of the historical context, I would try to figure out what I thought the main idea was. Am I on mute still? Yeah, still on mute. I would do all these things in preparation, right? Because I'm not going to actually stand in the front of my Bible study group or my small group and give a lecture on this book, right? That's not the whole point, but I need to actually go through the process myself, and probably in a little bit deeper way than I'm going to be asking my students to do that, right? And so I would do that, then I would get some historical background, I would try to understand, why is this significant to what is in the book, right? I do need to know about Paul's life. It's important to know where Paul is and what's happening, what has happened in Paul's life. Right? And the New Testament gives us, especially Acts, gives us some historical content to help us understand that. Okay? Good. And so it's important to have that foundational understanding. What else is important to have understanding on? Slavery. And I think there's a little bit of information here on the back to give us some help on this. Now, if you were my students in BCC, I would make you go get this information for yourself. But because what I want you to do is equip you with the ability to be able to then facilitate a small group, you could go and read about this, and this would be in those books that you guys give them. That's where a lot of this information comes from. It comes from a Bible dictionary, and so the information is there and available. But also, it's not just important for you to read it, it's important for you to understand how some of those things got there and were put into place. Okay, so if you're going to be asking like, well, when was this written? You can go and read, well, it was written at 62 AD. But what's the significance of it? So you need to read that, and then you need to take it a step further for yourself. Okay, because if we're going to try to draw some principles and conclusions out of the text, it's really important to know how those things were discovered. And if you don't know how to do that, that's okay. We can ask questions, right? Okay, so let's read the back now, and then we'll do an exercise to help us keep asking questions on how this is significant, how it's related to the text.